I have a guest that is going to be familiar to all of you, and I've been wanting to get him on the show for a long time. We've done some national media stuff together at the same time. He's a hometown guy here where I live, and we're incredibly proud of all the work that he does, not just for the Border Patrol, but really for this entire nation. Brandon Judd, welcome to the show.
Betsy, it's good to be with you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So before we get into it, I'm going to ask you what I ask every cop that comes on the show. Why'd you become a cop, Brandon?
Now, I don't think I'm any different than anybody else. When we put that uniform on, we want to go out and we want to protect the American people. We feel a sense of service. We want to ensure that our communities are safe. We want to ensure that the liberties that we have continue to go forward for our children, for our grandchildren, and for our posterity, frankly. That's the reason that the vast majority of us put on a uniform. That's the reason the vast majority of us go into law enforcement.
So, I was your basic city cop, and you took on a much different role. You're literally trying to keep this nation a sovereign country. And I, think back to when you were a rookie. That must have just been a pretty amazing task to take on.
Betsy, I appreciate all law enforcement. It doesn't matter whether it's DPS, county, or municipal police. Everybody does a very difficult job. But yeah, I mean, I look back to the beginning back in 1997 when I entered on duty with the United States Border Patrol. And back then, we were dealing a lot with mom and pop smuggling organizations. These were not the transnational criminal organizations that we're seeing today. These were a lot of small time smuggling organizations. They would also bring in a lot of marijuana, including the human smuggling. Now we just don't do that anymore. This is completely controlled by criminal cartels. These are, again, transnational criminal organizations that operate throughout the entire world, including right here in the United States. Most people think that all of these cartels are in Mexico, and that's just not true. They're around the world, including here in the United States. And that's one of the scary aspects of border security. When you look at what we do to try to protect the American people, and it doesn't matter whether it's in Tucson, Rio Grande Valley, San Diego, California, we're talking about Ames, Iowa, we're talking about Maine, we're talking about Florida, we're talking about throughout the entire United States, because that's where everything that enters our country illegally, that's where it's going. It's going throughout the United States. It's not staying right here in Tucson. So we do think that it's a very important job, and we're very disappointed right now because we just don't feel like we can do that job. We don't feel like we can protect the American people.
Brandon, I've done a lot of international travel, and there wasn't a single country's border that I could cross into where I didn't have to go through a significant amount of questioning and checks and showing paperwork and things like that. How did we lose control of our border?
Politics. It strictly comes down to politics. When you look at today's, again, having done this for many, many years, I recognize the ebbs and flows in politics. And I even go back to President Obama, his first term. He was extremely good on the border, extremely good. His second term is when we decided to get into presidential politics because it turned and we saw his true colors. We saw what his base wanted. We saw that his base wanted open borders. And we're seeing that with President Biden. And President Biden is putting his base of support or these special interest groups ahead of what's best for the American people. And so we're seeing right now that border security is now coming down to politics. And frankly, Betsy, we're seeing that with local law enforcement as well. All you have to do is look at the movement to defund the police. What we're dealing with today is we're dealing with more of politics than what's best for the American people. And it's disgusting to know that this power grab that these people are after is being put ahead of what's best for the safety and security of everybody in this country.
We hear a lot in the media, Brandon, about the border crisis and et cetera, but I don't think people really understand the depth and the severity of the situation of all these people who a lot of them we don't know where they're from. A lot of them you guys never even have contact with. And it all comes down to what Mr. Mayorkas is doing. And we have legislators who have said, okay, we're going to impeach him. That seems to be moving somewhat slowly. How will the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas help this situation?
So if it's run correctly, then we're going to have a trial in the Senate. And if there's a trial in the Senate, then all of the evidence is going to come out, exactly how he's failed, exactly how he hasn't done his job. But if Senator Schumer gets the vote immediately to shut it down, then we're never going to get that evidence. We're never going to get that. And so that's what I want to see. Whether they convict him, whether they don't, I want the American people to see exactly what is taking place on the border. I don't care if people agree with me or disagree with me. What I care about is that we have an honest conversation. I care that people have all of the facts to be able to make an informed decision. And when you can make that informed decision, you're going to be better equipped when you go to the ballot box to vote for who you think is going to be best. And unfortunately, we just don't have that honest conversation anymore. You have the radical left media, and I'm going to say it's MSNBC, but you have a radical left media that just doesn't want to have that honest conversation with the American people. And so that's why I want to see this trial. If we have this trial, we're going to be able to see exactly what's going on. We're going to be able to see the failures, and we're going to be able to see all of the dangers that exist for the American people. That's why I want the trial to go forward.
Do you think Americans are going to be surprised when they learn the truth? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, okay, well, people come over, they present themselves to the Border Patrol, they get a plane ticket and a bag of stuff, and they go on their merry way. And that's not the reality of these releases, is it? Can you help people understand what really happens?
Certainly. When you look at the number of people that we're dealing with today, all you have to do is look at the ones that we take into custody that have criminal records. We're dealing with rapists. We're dealing with pedophiles. We're dealing with arsonists. We're dealing with including people that are wanted for murder. So we're dealing with people that have some very serious criminal records. And then on top of that, those are just the people that we know of, the people that we take into custody. But on top of that, we're having about 1,000 people per day that enter our country illegally, and they're able to evade apprehension. So we don't know who they are, where they're coming from, what their intentions are in the United States. We don't know what their criminal records are, and we can't properly protect the American people if that is taking place. But on top of that, all of this illegal immigration, it's facilitating the drug trafficking that we see. Because what the illegal immigration does is it ties our hands up. No, it's just like any police officer. If you have a hostage situation, let's just say downtown Tucson, Tucson Police Department is going to deploy a huge number of officers to that one scene. And when you deploy that huge number of officers, you leave the rest of the city wide open to other crime that takes place. And that's exactly what the cartels are doing on our border. What they do is they flood our resources in one specific area. It requires us to then send a number of agents to that one location, leaving the border open in other areas. And that's when they cross our higher value products, whether it's criminal aliens, whether it's aliens from special interest countries that we know want to do us harm, or the dangerous fentanyl that is killing thousands of American citizens every single day. That's why border security is so important. If we properly secure our border, we can save lives, and we can keep, the dangers, the Lake and Rileys. We can keep them alive if we properly protect our borders.
Brandon, we hear all these stories of people who come into this country and, they're committing crimes. They're from, different gangs and things like that. Why aren't they deported?
Simply because we don't have the will to do it. That's what it comes down to. We're not holding people there. There's a number of things that can be done. Look, President Biden ran on that he was going to get rid of Trump's immigration policies. He said that. We knew that. What we expected was that he was going to put into place other programs or policies that were going to allow us to secure the border. And because he hasn't done that, he's created this magnet that is drawing so many people across our borders illegally. If he were to surge immigration judges to the border right now, and we were to hold hearings immediately for those people that are claiming asylum, then people could be deported. The problem is we're not doing that. We're not implementing any programs. And so these people are being released with an asylum claim that's not going to be heard for years down the road, which then allows them to create the havoc and the crime that we're seeing here in the United States.
People, and we hear that term asylum seeker all the time. And I don't think most Americans really understand that the criteria for seeking asylum is very, very limited, very, very tight, right? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so when you look at the number of people that claim asylum, it's only about 10% that once they go through the entire court proceedings are actually found to have a legitimate claim to asylum in the United States. Asylum is very serious. You have to be able to prove that you fear for your life, whether that's because of your political affiliations, whether that's because of your religious affiliations or your different groups that you might identify with. You have to prove that. The burden of proof is not on our government. The burden of proof is on these individuals to show that their lives are in danger in their country. That is a very, very difficult thing to do. And in all honesty, their lives really are not in danger in those countries. All you have to do is look at the countries that they're coming from, look at the murder rates, and the murder rates are fairly low in those countries. In fact, some of our cities have a higher murder rate than a lot of these countries that these people are claiming that they have an asylum from. The truth is these are economic migrants. That's what they are. They're coming here because they want to have good work, which they don't have in their countries, and that does not qualify them for asylum. But the problem, Betsy, is once they're released into the United States, they then abscond. They disappear into what Obama termed the shadows of society. So we never get to actually hold them accountable for the claims that they're making.
Well, and we're at a point now where really even local law enforcement can't really ask, right, someone's status when it comes to being an illegal here in the United States. Is that correct?
That is correct. SB 1070 was a good example. A law that was passed here in Arizona that the Supreme Court shot down. What they said was it was the federal government is the only one that can enforce immigration laws. Now, what can happen, however, is when you look at the sanctuary cities, let's talk about that and exactly what that is. What a sanctuary city means when somebody like, let's use Los Angeles, for instance. If a police officer from Los Angeles takes somebody into custody for arson and that person is illegal, they are supposed to notify ICE that they have this person in custody. ICE will then issue a detainer, and theoretically, they're then supposed to notify ICE when they're going to be released from whatever their proceedings are. So if they're sentenced to, say, 6 months in a municipal jail, okay, that municipal jail is supposed to notify ICE when those people when their term has been served. Then ICE is supposed to take them into custody. They don't notify ICE. They're not cooperating with the federal government in order to remove these people. And frankly, Biden is not holding these sanctuary cities accountable for what they're doing. And that's the problem that we're seeing with illegal immigration. A lot of people they think that this is legal immigration. All that you and I are talking about is illegal immigration, and that's what's got to be stopped.
Brandon, since October 7th, in addition to all the other border concerns we have an additional concern in the United States, in that even Christopher Wray has testified multiple times that we're going to have some sort of terrorism attack, black swan event, whatever you want to call it. How difficult is that for the Border Patrol, who now has to, in addition to all that you do, pay attention to potential jihadists coming into this country and wanting to do either lone wolf type attacks or massive attacks on the citizens of the United States?
It's extremely difficult. What we understand, what the law enforcement community understands and recognizes, it's not an if something is going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And that's what Christopher Wray has been saying. Now, I'm glad that he's come out and he's finally said something. I just wish he would have done it 3 months into this administration. I wish he would have sounded the alarm back then when we recognized that something was seriously wrong, rather than waiting a couple months before an election. And frankly, it looks like he's just trying to ingratiate himself to what the polls are saying, and that's President Trump is going to win. It's very upsetting to us that all of the people that have this information, that have that bully pulpit, that can go out and talk to the American people, they refuse to do it until they feel it's good for their career. But the fact remains, this is a very serious situation. When you look at what we're dealing with, I'll go back to 1997. 98% of the people that we were dealing with were from Mexico. Now, that percentage has dropped exponentially. We're now dealing with people from the Middle East, dealing with people from Eastern Europe. We're dealing with people from the African nations. We're dealing with people from countries that want to do us harm. We know that these countries do not like us. Look at what's happening with the Chinese nationals that we're taking into custody in San Diego right now. These are military-aged men, and we know that China is an enemy to our government. We know that China does not want our democracy to continue, and yet we're not doing anything about that because of the politics. So it's extremely upsetting to every single one of us every single time we take somebody into custody that is from one of these countries that we know want to do us harm, because this just wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the policies that are currently in place.
Brandon, if we do see a change in the administration, are we prepared for mass deportations, or will all these people just remain here?
So the first thing that we have to do is we have to stop the flow that's already coming in, and that can be done tomorrow. President Biden could do that tomorrow if he wanted to, if he had the political will to do it. So you stop that flow from coming in, and once you stop that flow, then you can start to look inward. Now, because there are millions of people here, and we only have a couple thousand ICE ERO officers nationwide. No, we can't deport all of these people. But what we could do is we could make it to where they want to self-deport. If you cut off the funding stream, all of the social benefits that these people have, if you stop the jobs that these people are able to get, if you stop all of that, then these people are going to want to self-deport. And if we can do that, then yes, we can focus on, let's go after as many as we possibly can. We saw that under President Trump in the first couple months of his term. We saw a lot of people that were leaving this country voluntarily, that were here illegally, because they were afraid of what was coming. Unfortunately, Congress didn't work with him. And, we saw an explosion in illegal immigration in 2019, and that caused him, thank goodness, it caused him to take some very good measures that we'd never seen before. I was right there working with him when he was doing it, and these measures were extremely successful. So yes, we will be able to stop the flow immediately, and then we can put pressure on them to self-deport. Then we can free up ICE to go after the people that are here illegally. It can happen.
Brandon, when I'm flying out of the Tucson International Airport, I'm seeing people in that special line that I don't get to go in because I got to show my ID. I see them with nicer phones than I have. I see them with brand new clothing. I see them buying $25 hamburgers when I'm walking by because I can't afford that. Who's paying for all that?
The taxpayers. It's being done in a roundabout way, but our government funds these NGOs. These NGOs then give the money to these individuals. It's these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that's what an NGO is. These non-governmental organizations who are being funded with taxpayer dollars, they're the ones that are purchasing these plane tickets. They're the ones that are purchasing the clothes, all of the benefits that they're getting. Again, it's all about benefits. If people know that they're going to be able to come to this country illegally, and they're going to be given tons and tons of benefits, sometimes benefits that even U.S. citizens don't have. All we have to do is look at what Maine gave housing to illegal aliens rather than housing to, say, veterans. If those benefits continue, people are going to continue to come. We have to cut those benefits off.
We talk a lot about police officer mental health at the National Police Association. And can you explain to people how not being able to do the job you were hired to do wreaks havoc on the mental health of Border Patrol personnel?
So I personally believe, and I think that most psychiatrists would agree with this, People want to feel like their job means something. They want to be able to go home at the end of the day and think that they accomplished something. One of the hardest jobs that I ever did was when I was in college in Phoenix, and I worked for a concrete company. But every single day, as difficult as that job was, as hot as it was in Phoenix, every day I was able to walk off the job site, look back, and see what we accomplished. And right now, Border Patrol agents just don't have that sense of accomplishment. We feel defeated. We go home every day feeling like we didn't accomplish anything, feeling like we're getting a paycheck for doing absolutely nothing. And anytime that happens, that does take a toll, not just on in your personal life, but it takes a toll in your family life as well, because you just don't feel like you're accomplishing anything. And when you don't feel like you're accomplishing anything, then your self-esteem goes down. Your desire to do good goes down. So it plays a huge role whether or not we feel like we're able to do our jobs. And frankly, again, Betsy, I've talked with many, many law enforcement officers. This whole defund police has caused a significant drop in the mental health of our police officers as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Real quickly, are you having a hard time recruiting and retaining personnel?
So we don't have a hard time recruiting people. We have a very hard time retaining people. We have lots and lots of people in the pipeline. But once they get in and once they see exactly what the job entails and not being able to do the job, we just can't retain people. The Border Patrol has one of, if not the highest attrition rates in the entire federal government.
I'll tell you, Brandon, you are out there doing God's work, literally, and we really appreciate all you do. Tell folks where they can find you, where they can follow you.
You can follow me at Real Brandon Judd on Twitter. That's the main place to follow us. You can also follow us at BP Union. You can follow us in those two locations.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it. And if you'd like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Are you passionate about supporting law enforcement? The National Police Association is on a mission to strengthen our communities, protect our families, and ensure justice prevails. But they need your help. Every dollar you donate makes a difference. It funds the legal defense of police officers and police agencies, supports advocacy for pro-law enforcement legislation, and funds community outreach programs and education. Imagine safer streets, stronger bonds between officers and neighborhoods, and a brighter future for all. Join us. Visit our website at nationalpolice.org to donate today.